Welcome to the Mini Storage Messenger Self-Storage webinar series. I'm Robin Dodge, Circulation and Social Media Coordinator. Thank you for attending today. This is one of our regularly scheduled informative webinars planned for self-storage owners, operators, managers, investors, developers, and other industry professionals. The sponsor of today's webinar is Chamberlain Access Solutions, a leading developer, manufacturer, and provider of integrated solutions for access control, site security, and facility management. Our presenters today are Jeffrey J. Greenberger, a partner in the law firm of Katz, Greenberger, and Norton, LLP in Cincinnati, Ohio, and Joe Dahlquist, product manager for Chamberlain Access Solutions. Our topic is 7 words you should never say, legal reasons for taming your advertising claims. To start off, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our presenters. Jeffrey concentrates his practice in the areas of commercial real estate with a particular concentration on the representation of owners and operators of self-storage facilities. His client list ranges from a 20-unit vehicle storage facility to some of the largest national self-storage companies. Jeffrey is also the legal advisor to several state self-storage associations. He is a featured speaker at national self-storage trade shows, state association trade shows, and online learning initiatives. Jeffrey also writes the monthly Legal Landscape column for the Mini Storage Messenger, and his articles often appear in other industry-related trade journals. As product manager for Chamberlain, Joe has a focused interest in developing meaningful product solutions for customers in the storage industry. He maintains the company's Facebook presence and has written informative articles about security and access solutions for the Mini Storage Messenger. This year marks the 31st anniversary of the Mini Storage Messenger, providing the self-storage industry with in-depth news and information. Each issue of the Messenger offers cover stories and feature articles on the most timely industry topics and trends. Monthly columns contributed by industry experts and accomplished business professionals address a wide range of topics including security, facility operations, technology, legal issues, legislative updates, construction, and development. We also publish a variety of other self-storage data sources like the ones you see listed. For more information, please visit ministoragemessenger.com. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing on demand from our archives at ministoragemessenger.com. Today's presentation should run about 45 minutes. And now I'd like to turn the presentation over to Jeffrey. Good afternoon, Jeff.
Good afternoon, Robin. How are you today? Thank you all for joining us. Before I begin, as always, I am required to remind you that I am presented today by Minico and Chamberlain and selfstoragelegal.com for educational purposes only. We hope strongly that you take information from this webinar and use it in your practice and policies and procedures at your self-storage facility. However, it is always recommended that you consult with your own local attorney or your self-storage attorney before making any changes to your policies and procedures to make sure that you've got them all, that you're covered, and that you haven't created other incongruous or other problematic issues for yourself by making changes without recognizing how those changes affect the rest of your environment. So today's topic is the 7 deadly words that you should not use, with a promise that we'll throw in some bonus words for you. The point of this, other than to sound a little bit like George Carlin, is that I've been watching a lot of advertising in the industry, and I recognize that today's marketplace is super competitive. And advertising is one of the ways, especially the security features of your facility, is one of the ways that you can best differentiate your facility from your competition up the street or down the street. That's all very well and good, but you have to consider the true meaning of some of the words that the industry has started throwing around and that you may be using in your advertising to make sure you can live with these words if summoned to court over them. The terms you use in your advertising to describe your facility could actually end up to work against you in the future. Now, before I move on to the words, let me say that if you do meet the definitions of some of these words, please feel free to use them. We're going to talk later about a word like professional staff. In that instance, if your staff really does meet that definition, then by all means use it. This list is not meant to be banned words. It's words that you should really think hard about before using to make sure that if you ever have to defend yourself over these words, that you can actually honor and use the words and make them work for you. Let's start with looking at some of the words, as I said, you use in your advertising or in your daily language at your facility, starting with some of your security features. Again, we're going to look at the words as they're used in communication, the technical definition as well as the commonly used meaning, to make sure that you recognize what you are saying when you say it. Let's start with the number one word, safe. Safe has a couple different definitions, but I've thrown them up on the screen for you. Secure from liability for harm, injury, danger, or risk. And or free from hurt, injury, danger, or risk. Again, many of you use in advertising, in talking about your security features, that you have safe facilities or high safety lighting or any other number of uses of the word safe, normally tossed in with the word secure next in your advertising, which, by the way, happens to be a word that I have coming up in a few minutes. But remember, when you say safe, what you mean is my facility is free from harm, danger, or risk, free from injury, free from people getting hurt. I don't think you can really live by that word if ever hailed into court to defend it. A little later I'll tell you about a word that, combined with words like this, resulted in a lawsuit about a woman being raped, and it's just these words come back to bite you because people will turn them on you later when bad things happen to their property. Full-time professional staff. Now, this is one of those words that I said may or may not be applicable or may not need to be banned. First of all, let's talk about resident manager on site. I see that in ads all the time. Time may be money, but even full-time managers do leave the site occasionally, which means that they're not necessarily full-time on site. Be careful how that might be interpreted. A lot of people say our facilities are safer because we have these resident managers living on site watching over your stuff at night when the facility's closed. If your manager actually leaves the facility at night, then who's watching the stuff? And really, if your manager sleeps, are they a sound sleeper? Because if they are, they may not be awakened at 3 in the morning when someone comes over the gate or comes over the fence, and that may be a problem. And then professional staff, defined as performed by persons as a source of livelihood or having great skill or experience in a field or activity. Now that may very well be your manager. You may have the 15-year manager who has completed all their certifications and really knows their stuff. That's great, and you might be able to rely on that. But if you have break managers or break employees on Saturdays and Sundays or evenings, you may not be able to say that because not all of your staff is professional. Now, some people may say I'm splitting hairs with this one, but the problem is that oftentimes these weekend employees will not fill in the rental agreements or not give the same information or not handle affairs in the same manner as you would have wanted them to be handled if you or the professional manager was running the facility. So later you become barred from claiming that there was an omission or an error in missing these boxes or missing this information because you claim you have a professional staff and they should know what they're doing. Again, food for thought. If you think that's splitting hairs, okay. But on the other hand, think about it if you're ever defending a problem with your lease and you have that language and it's a mistake by your staff that is at issue. The next word is going to be warehouse or warehousing. It never ceases to surprise me how many times we see the term warehouse or mini warehousing in the name of a facility. And I am sorry the slides took forever to advance and then jump around. Many of your state statutes go to great lengths to actually state within the definitional section that warehousing is not self-storage and self-storage is not warehousing. The reason that is because warehousing has its own section of statute in almost every state, and it sets forth that warehousing is where the goods are taken in, you give a receipt for those goods are producible upon demand by you as the warehouser to make available to the user of the warehouse, the tenant for lack of a better term. They often also require that warehouses be fire suppressed and that the goods be insured, among other things. In places like Illinois, there are actually statutes pending that would make warehousing even more restrictive. You're not in that business. If you're listening to this webinar, I hope you're not in that business because you're not spending the right you're not in the right industry webinar right now. But by statute, self-storage is specifically designed to provide that the owner does not issue that bill of lading or a receipt or any document of title. It's not a warehouse arrangement. Your facilities may or may not be fire suppressed, but you are probably not insuring the goods. And you're probably not living up to the other terms and conditions of warehousing in your state. That is, you need to be checking on the goods, and you're responsible for what happens to those goods. So you take a perfectly good statute that says self-storage is not warehousing, gives you all these advantages as far as not having responsibility to check on the status of the goods, not having control over the goods, and then maybe mess it all up by calling yourself a warehouse or a mini warehouse. That is a term I just could not strongly recommend you get away from enough. That's one you need to lose. Okay, moving on to number 4, surveillance and monitoring. Surveillance, and most of you use it to discuss your video system, means to watch at all times as if a detective, close observation of a person or a group. Monitoring is any device used to record or control a process, to keep track of by means of an electronic device, or to scrutinize or check systematically with a view towards collecting certain specified categories of data, and literally to watch over. So let's back up and talk about both for a minute. The reason that surveillance is a problem is because many of you advertise that you have surveillance video systems or surveillance cameras, or have a wall behind your desk that says surveillance in progress or surveillance camera systems or something like that. And what you are saying when you use the word surveillance is that there's somebody watching those cameras all the time, closely. Maybe not 24/7 every minute, but closely. That led to a case in Georgia a few years ago, and another one that is actually, while we're recording a webinar, just going on in Texas, where people are suing the facilities because they said that while they called their system surveillance, that the people who should have been watching those cameras were not there to protect the people and the goods when summoned for help via the camera. In the Georgia case, it was a woman who was feeling threatened, and she ran to the camera to yell for help. She was subsequently sexually assaulted. In the other case, it was a break into a motorhome that was supposedly being watched by a surveillance camera, and all the subsequent losses that occurred from that motorhome being broken into, because in theory, if you have surveillance cameras, think TV commercial time, the guy in the blue blazer with the earpiece is sitting there watching the cameras and calling for help when they detect a problem. If that's not what you're offering at your facility, you probably should not be calling it a surveillance system. People often ask me, okay, I have surveillance on the wall, on the truck, on the sign, what do I call it? And there's all sorts of names for it that you can use more safely. A closed-circuit television system, a closed-circuit recorded system, a television or a video camera recording system, a video camera system, a CATV system. Any of those names don't imply and don't give people the opportunity to later say, hey, you had this system going, and it didn't work because you didn't do what was advertised by watching it. And what always happens in these sorts of cases is people say, I would have chosen brand X down the street, but I picked your facility because my stuff was safer because you told me you had surveillance systems. Monitoring is sort of a similar word. If you think about conventions, many of us pay to have our home alarms monitored. If you think that home alarm monitoring happens between 8 and 6 each day and is not manned the rest of the day, you would probably cancel your monitoring contract with your alarm company. Of course, you'd be penalized for it, but that's a whole other thing. When you say that you have monitoring, video monitoring, monitor gates, or any other use of the word monitor at your facility, you're promising the same thing. Conventional definition of the term matches the dictionary definition. The public believes when something is monitored, it's being watched all the time. As a matter of fact, you may have noticed recently at some major drug chains like Walgreens who used to have signs above their video cameras saying video surveillance in progress or video monitoring in progress. Most of those signs have gone away, and now they say video camera in use or video recording in progress. The reason is because if people get hurt or slip and fall at Walgreens or even assaulted at a Walgreens, I'm not picking on Walgreens specifically, if there's not someone there watching the cameras to come and help, that causes a problem. So while our very kind sponsor, Chamberlain Access Solutions today, definitely sells this equipment, I know when Joe comes up in a couple minutes, he'll be telling you that while we, between us, may call it video surveillance systems and so forth, I think he'll agree with me that we do want to try to avoid the use of those terms in our marketing, in our advertising, in the way we describe the services. And certainly disclaimer language in your rental agreement is also critical to make sure that, and I'm not saying even if you call it video surveillance or video monitoring, but no matter what it is that you buy from Chamberlain or any other supplier and put up, that you disclaim that those systems don't always work all the time and may not record all of the facility. For example, if your electricity goes out because of a storm and your system isn't battery backed up, not that the equipment's bad, but it's not going to be recording, let alone being monitored or surveyed by the guy in the blue blazer and the earpiece. So those are some other terms that you may really strongly want to consider taking out of common use, sort of striking from your regular day-to-day self-storage vocabulary. It's important to understand what other people may understand from your words and to try to make sure that they are not misinterpreting or correctly interpreting what you didn't mean to have interpreted against you. I promised you secure, safe and secure. Security means, definitionally from the dictionary, freedom from risk of danger, safety or freedom from doubt, anxiety or fear, or confidence or anything that gives or assures safety. Now, we can talk later about the access systems that Chamberlain has now invented that are so cool and that I like so much. And they may be something that you can say provides a greater level of security, but remember, and just remember to think, when you say something like safe and secure, you are advertising or promising or representing in your materials that your facility is going to basically be crime-free. And the problem is that while even great access solutions may prevent the bad guy from coming through the doors and breaking into the units, you're not necessarily preventing someone who's legally there, a legal tenant, from mixing meth or whatever you do to make meth in the unit next door and lighting the building on fire. So is your facility secure? Is it really free from all crime? Will any system prevent someone from being sexually assaulted on property? I know I'm the bearer of bad news and bad tidings when I talk about these things, but you got to think about it because, again, we always think forward about if something bad happens and someone wants to come along and sue you and say, it was a very nice contract and it really did a great job to protect you. It was really well written by a really good attorney, and then, and I'd abide by it except that your advertising, the truck, the sign, the things, the words you use in your presentation gave me reason to believe that even though there may have been disclaimers in your lease that not everything is perfectly guaranteed safe, your other actions gave me reason to believe that everything was very safe and very secure, that my property was going to be free from elements of crime, my safety was never in doubt, and that I should have great confidence that no matter what happens, I'm going to get my property back just exactly right. If you feel like you can advertise and use those words, great. Otherwise, you may want to consider again taking them out of your day-to-day language. Okay, moving on to the next one is what I call the name game. And the name game is names that you may consider using mostly in the title of your facility that I think lead to that same kind of trouble as you might have had using the word safe and secure, because you have this great lease. It says we're not liable for your losses. It says you should insure your property. It says even if we have cameras, it doesn't guarantee safety. And then you go and name your facility something like Fortress or Fort Knox. Invincible, the one that makes me laugh all the time, is Fireproof. The Titanic was unsinkable. Foolproof, I've seen that name a few times. Security, secured, safe, best, perfect. You can add to the list. You go to the trouble of naming your facility that instead of by street name or by brand name. You're gonna make sure that somebody eventually comes along and says, I rented from you because brand X couldn't guarantee absolute safety, but I knew you could because you are secure, security, secured, you're a fortress, etc. Now, if you happen to be in Fort Knox and you're the facility next to the fort, okay, maybe. But if you're in Florida and you're named Fort Knox, you're implying that the place is about as impervious as Fort Knox, and that's probably not true. And if you do run a self-storage facility with armed guards 24 hours a day and that kind of system, please let me know, because I'd love to get it featured in the Mini Storage Messenger. And while I have bonus words for you, my seventh word of the 7 deadly words, or the 7 words you should never use in self-storage, is authorized access. Now, I know that's not a word, that's a term. However, what you are saying when you collect on a line in your rental agreement, authorized access, is that you are saying to your tenant that you are going to take responsibility for who else is in that unit. You are, as I put on the slide, the gatekeeper for your customers. It creates a whole bunch of problems. The best way to define authorized access is to hand them the lock with, and hopefully you're selling them a lock or some other locking system, and say, here are the keys, or here is the code to open the unit, and whoever you give these keys or code to is going to get into your unit. I'm not going to know about it. I'm not going to be able to stop it. I'm not going to know to stop it because I don't watch to make sure who is coming and going. Let's just take it one step further. Say the person who has authorized access is Bill Smith or Jose Garcia or any other name that probably there's 26 million of them in the country. Now, how are you going to be sure that when someone shows up and says, I'm Bill Smith to get into Jeff Greenberger's unit, that that is the Bill Smith that I intended? You're not going to know. And it just breeds a problem, because it breeds a lawsuit, because what you're saying is, well, you just go ahead and tell me who should get in and out of the unit, and I'll let those people in if they come to my desk and ask me. You don't want to do that. A, you don't want to be cutting locks like that. B, people tend to change their minds about those things and forget to notify you, and they want to hold you liable. And C, and let me just sub-footnote to B, or say that they sent you a cancellation to that person and you have no record of it. Now it's a he said, she said kind of thing. And further, you're not going to really know who these people are, and what you're doing is implying that you watch those sorts of things. And you may not watch the gate all day, and surely even if you do, if someone punches in a gate code and heads on back, you probably aren't following them to make sure they really are your tenant. So you probably want to get rid of that request from your lease or rental agreement if you If you have a husband and wife as an example, and they both want to be named on the lease, you can't do it. I recommend you don't do it. So what you do is you say, look, one of you is named on the lease. Both of you know the gate code. Here's 3 keys to the lock. You both have one now. You're both going to be able to get in. But if I need to contact somebody, it's going to be husband or wife, not both. I can't have 2 people to whom I owe this duty of loyalty. I will be back in a couple of minutes after Joe speaks with a few more words, a little more food for thought. But let me give you my bonus word, which is high security locks. We've already talked about the meaning of the word security. When you contend that you have higher security locks, and I've seen those. I've seen it in ads from the lock companies. I've seen it from ads from self-storage facilities. You are a better facility because your locks go all the way through the door and twist with a special key, etc. You've got to think of what that means. Security, high security, means you are freer, if there is such a word, from the risk of crime, danger, or vulnerability than a normal disc lock or a normal padlock would provide. And I'm sorry, if somebody really wants to get into that lock, they're gonna. If somebody really wants to unscrew partitions, they're gonna. If someone's going to make meth, it doesn't matter how secure the lock is on the door next door. But on top of all that, lock and latch systems are vulnerable. They just are. And if you don't know what a bump key is, bump like a speed bump, go to, not now, after we're all done today, go to YouTube and type in for videos bump keys and watch what people can do with one of about 4 different little, what you might call skeleton keys, and something to strike them with, like a hammer or a mallet. What you will find is there are very, very few locks that can't be easily opened in about 6 seconds with someone who really knows how to use a bump key. Yeah, it also means your front door on your home is vulnerable. It also means every other lock that you think you've got on your desk or on your file cabinets or whatever are also completely vulnerable. It's the way of the world. There's smarter people out there defeating those systems. So before you start talking about how high security locks you have or the better locking systems and so forth, make sure you really can live by that, because if a bump key can foil the lock that quickly, I don't know how free from danger and risk that lock really is. Now I'm going to turn this over to Joe, who I know wants to talk, and I'm very excited to hear about the new access system that may actually help you with this term. Joe?
Thank you, Jeffrey, and thanks to everyone who's joining us today for this webinar. My name is Joe. I'm from Chamberlain Access Solutions and the product manager here. For over 25 years, we have supplied access control solutions specifically into the self-storage industry to help to build tools, systems, and products that provide customers and facility owners with solutions that are tailored to this unique industry, the facilities that they operate, and also help to increase the level of security and the level of peace of mind on behalf of customers and owners within the self-storage industry itself. We're talking today about a new system solution that Chamberlain Access Solutions has been working on for quite some time and have just recently launched. And as everyone in this industry knows, every minute absolutely does count, and every dollar matters. And as Jeffrey has spoken to extensively, every customer does take you at your word, and so it's very critical that you convey through your language exactly what your systems are capable of and the limitations of those systems, so that you're accurately portraying to your customers, both existing and potential, the solutions that you have chosen to employ at your facility. The new solution that we have been working on is called the Access Master Overlock System. And it's a device and system solution that does revolutionize facility management. It has benefits for both new and existing facilities, very capable of being retrofitted onto existing sites, and certainly a shoe-in for all new construction that is occurring these days. Has the ability to enhance services, streamline operations, and can aid in maximizing the profitability potential of your facility as well. What the system does is allows facility managers specifically to avoid letting time slip by overlocking vacant and delinquent units automatically. Currently, and historically in the self-storage business, overlocking of vacant and delinquent units has been a very manual process, both tedious and somewhat time-consuming, and it often pulls the manager's attention away from serving customers and selling space, which at the end of the day are two very core functions to operating a successful facility. The processes for placing tenants or units into a lien and auction state, and the move-in and move-out process, including the lock checks that are often done daily, or additional time sinks that managers have had to deal with for, well, since the inception of self-storage. And of course, sometimes managers just can't avoid leaving the office, but any system or solution that helps to minimize the time that a facility manager is away from the office could certainly allow that facility to reap the benefit of more customer face time with the manager, which can yield improved customer service and a happier tenant in the long run. Tenants do appreciate visible security measures, and this has become evident in a number of different areas in self-storage, namely things like keypads being a visible access control device that are employed at facilities in prominent locations, CCTV cameras and products that are placed throughout a facility that not only serve a purpose to capture video, but also serve a purpose to communicate to customers that a facility is concerned and is aware of what is going on at that given facility. Tenants typically will happily pay for those visible security measures. In fact, industry statistics have consistently shown year after year that sites who choose to employ computerized access control systems and also employ visible security measures can charge a premium. In fact, this premium on average is about 30% of the monthly rental rate that can be charged over facilities that do not employ computerized access control systems or visible security measures. So that directly addresses the ability to maximize profitability at a facility. These sites that employ these solutions also have not only a different clientele, perhaps a clientele that is, you know, for lack of a better word, maybe a better clientele, tenants that tend to rent for longer periods of time, tenants that are less inclined to become problematic, and they typically enjoy these facilities higher occupancy rates on average than facilities that do not. So a great tool to leverage when you're looking to try and maximize occupancy and also the profitability of a facility. I would recommend contacting Chamberlain Access Solutions to look into what some solutions might be available that can be added to your facility. Great way to effectively boost revenues, and these systems on average cost less than a couple of percentage points of a facility's total annual revenue. So employing these systems can quickly pay for themselves. That's a great return on investment argument. The promises that you want to be able to make and keep to your tenants. You want to be able to convey a sense of security and peace of mind to your customers. You'll be able to attract a discerning customer who knows about your competition, knows what they're offering, and demands the best, and you want them to select your facility as a place to store their goods. Visible security measures do help to protect property. They serve as a very effective device or layer of theft prevention. Now, granted, you will never be able to vandal-proof or theft-proof a facility. And as Jeffrey alluded to before, if somebody wants to break in badly enough, if somebody wants to get into a facility badly enough, they will find a way, whether it's by use of something like a bump key or a bolt cutter or just the ability to jump over a fence and get in. What you're looking at doing is putting up as many obstacles as possible, and layer upon layer of obstacles will eventually net out in a facility that is just too much of a challenge or is just too risky for a thief, and your goal there should be able to disincentivize a thief or a would-be bad guy from breaking into your facility and go look for a lower hanging piece of fruit somewhere else. You want the facility to be able to identify the status of all unit doors within a facility without necessarily having to go out into the facility and run around the track to look at each one individually. If you were to have the ability to, at a quick glance of either a computer monitor or a large display monitor, understand whether unit doors are open, whether they're closed, whether the given tenant for a unit is on site or not on site, you are an empowered manager and business owner because you have much more data at your fingertips to understand what is going on, both in the here and now in real time and also historically as far as the activity levels that are occurring at your site. You want to discourage tailgating into a facility. That is historically has been one of the banes of self-storage, is people that decide to forego entering their access code at a keypad and just follow the car in front of them into a facility. When that is done, you lose that ability to track who is on site at any given time and who has left. You also lose the ability to look back at data historically, whether it be a day ago, a week ago, or a year ago, and understand which tenants at any given day or time were present at the facility when they came and when they left. That data can be very useful in all sorts of things, whether it's in response to vandalism that occurred or an accident, a claim that's been filed, or anything else. Understanding who is truly at the facility at any given time is very critical data. And being able to prevent unit access on a unit-by-unit basis during a tenant's extended absence is also a great selling feature for a facility. It adds yet another boost to peace of mind on behalf of the customer and makes them more comfortable about leaving town, going on an extended vacation, being deployed overseas for a period of time, to know that there is something additionally there barring entry into their unit by would-be bad guys. Now, these are all great items to have, but until now, they really haven't been something that has been easily employed or even possible at facilities. And with the introduction of our new overlock system, these capabilities can be realized. What we're looking at here is a typical facility layout and our overlock product family being overlaid on top of it as far as where things could be located. The device that you see at the bottom of the screen there is called the overlock device itself. It is mounted onto a self-storage rolling corrugated sheet metal door. It's located just to the left of or just adjacent to a sliding hasp. And it communicates with the access control system, namely our Falcon XT access control system, wirelessly. It runs on 2 AA lithium batteries, gives it about 2 years of use out in the field before the batteries need to be replaced. And via some communication devices allows for a facility to be retrofitted with these products to form a solution that doesn't require retrenching an entire site or stringing wire from one corner of the facility to another. The beauty of this solution is it simply prevents a hasp from being slid to the open position when the system is automatically instructed to prevent access to that particular unit. Now, it doesn't lock the unit, it doesn't add an additional locking device, but it prevents that hasp from being opened and effectively provides another layer of access control to an individual unit. This device itself can retract and deploy automatically. It can happen very quickly. So by the time somebody enters their access code at the front gate, and once they arrive at their unit, if they are supposed to be able to access their unit, this device will be retracted. They simply unlock the lock that they have either purchased or are using, and roll up their door and pull out all the Christmas lights and Halloween decorations and whatever it is that they may need. When they close their unit back up and relock the lock that they have placed on the unit, and then exit the facility, this device will automatically overlock again, preventing anybody from accessing it. This system will take cues from whatever facility management software is being used at the site to automatically bar access from each unit when that tenant has become delinquent. And then as well will automatically allow access to that unit once the rent has made current again. So it's something that provides yet an automated additional layer of security and peace of mind for customers. Along with those devices, the system communicates wirelessly through this wireless transceiver. It serves as the main communication hub for the entire facility and all overlock devices that have been deployed. And a very similar looking device is a repeater, and these can be used throughout the facility to ensure that you get good wireless coverage, even on the back 40 or at every far corner of the property that you have. The control and the status for this entire system, down to a resolution level of each individual unit, is very easily accomplished through a simple user interface. This user interface would be accessible on the business PC or computer that's located in the manager's office, and at a quick glance, via color coding, you would be able to understand what tenants are on site at any given time, what units are open, what units are locked, and also the battery level status of each one of the devices themselves. So very simple, very straightforward, very informative, and allows you to understand a great bit more about what's going on at your facility than without this system employed. This system has benefits for everyone. Customers will immediately notice the difference. It is not only an operational means of differentiating yourself from your competition, but is also a very visible means of differentiating yourself from your competition as well. This will set you apart from every other self-storage facility, and these days they can often be found in 3 or 4 to a main strip in every town. Managers will praise the simplicity of the system. It will help ease the load in their day-to-day duties. It will free them up to interact and support their customers, both existing and potential, much more so than without this system. And owners will certainly enjoy the significant gains that come via additional rental rates and increased occupancy levels as well. And I wanted to thank everyone for sticking with us through my portion of the presentation here, and if there's any questions, we can take them at the end. Jeffrey, turning it back over to you.
Joe, and I'd like to find a way to go back one slide just for a moment.
Oh, apologies. I'll go ahead and take it back.
Robin,
there.
you may have to. There we go.
I've got it right there.
I promised you I'd come back with a couple words, food for thought. But Joe, just before you sort of go into mute mode, your system would also imply that if a facility is completely closed at night, if you're trying to get zoning approval or something and prove that no one will come and go from the facility after 10 p.m., your system could theoretically overlock, as it were, all units at 10 p.m. Automatically. Is that correct?
It is correct. Actually, the time in which you choose to engage or overlock all units is something that's selectable. So you can set a very simple range of business hours where you would say we only want people to be able to access their units and open them between maybe 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. But the system has enough flexibility to be able to recognize special days, holidays, different weekend hours than weekday hours, and so there's a lot of empowerment there for a facility to tailor the access control depending on when they want users to be able to access their units, all the way down to an individual user and account basis.
What I love about the system, amongst other things, is that that's a whole lot better than saying the manager is sleeping in the apartment above the facility at night and providing security. It really, obviously, I mean, if somebody really wants to get in with a saw and a crowbar, they're going to get in. But beyond that, you can really shut down and lock down that facility at night. If you've got an indoor enclosed building, it's a way to make sure people have no ability to sleep in those units, leaving the door partially open because you'll get a fault code, I guess, before when you go to put it in shutdown mode for the night, right?
You're absolutely right. And an alarming trend that we have seen over the last few years is vacant units, which are usually either available to be rented soon or even used as showcase models for potential customers, are being used for a number of undesired purposes, whether it's for somebody to sleep in and camp out overnight, a potential criminal to hide in, a dumping place for people's trash, or any other illegitimate or undesirable activities. And this system will also allow you to easily lock and unlock those vacant units, making them accessible when a manager is ready to show them off, or maintenance to be provided for those units to get them into a rentable status, but will allow you to otherwise, at every other time, keep those units locked and or engaged so that nobody can access them.
Or in theory, if you're running like a call center after hours, the call center could unlock the unit when it completes the rental.
They certainly could, which makes unmanned facilities quite a bit more effective and more customer friendly, and call centers all the more valuable for some business methods for a number of facilities that are out there now.
Just a remarkable development in the industry. Thank you for putting that together for the industry.
Thank you.
I promise to come back and give you a couple more words. These are not security words, but they're still on my hit list. So I figured I'd at least leave you with them as you wind up today's webinar. We're almost out of time, but just a couple more that are dangerous words that you may want to consider avoiding. The first is free. Free means given without consideration of anything. The cell phone companies have all been sued by the state's attorney generals for offering free cell phones. Of course, to get the free cell phone, you have to sign a 2-year service agreement with a gigantic break fee in it. That makes it not free. If you are offering the first month's rent free with a 3-month rental agreement, that unit really isn't free because you're going to hold them liable for rent for the next 2 months, and that isn't free. That's given in anticipation of additional consideration. Same with free truck at move-in. It's not really free if they have to sign a lease for a self-storage unit. Our recommendation is to consider things like $1 or back-ending the freebies. So if you want to give the 3rd month free or the 7th month free, if fulfilling 2 other months or 6 other months, that's probably more in line with what you can use the word free, because that month is free if they live up to their contract. Up at that point, you're going to give them a gift of a free month. They don't have to stay into month 8 to get month 7 for free. So think about that and think about how you throw that word around and whether you want to be the next target of all the state's attorney generals like the cell phone companies were. Climate control. You do not control the climate because you can't control earthquakes and tsunamis and tidal waves and tornadoes. You may control the temperature. You may air cool, you may heat, you may swamp cool, you may even control humidity. Use the right term. I know the industry has grown up and loves the term climate control, but you can't control the climate. And by the way, if the roof leaks or if a tornado takes your roof off, you're still providing climate control at that point, and you can't do it. So make sure you have the appropriate disclaimers in your rental agreement for whatever you call it other than climate control to say that these systems are fallible. Electricity goes out, your air conditioning may not work. Tornado blows your roof off, you're not really going to be able to control the temperature within the units at that point. Make sure you've got those appropriate disclaimers. Dry. Dry means free from all moisture, period. Your facilities are not dry. The roofs may not leak. You may be multi-story and it may not get wet in there, but if your facility were free from all moisture, everyone who put paperwork in would come back to find dust in a couple weeks. So just think about it, because if a roof does leak and if stuff gets wet or if stuff gets moldy in a unit, you're going to be challenged on your advertising of the use of the word dry. And finally, before I turn this back over to Robin, is the term anniversary date. Remember that the root of anniversary is the same word as annual, meaning once a year. If you use the term anniversary date for that date that rent is due and so forth, the renewal date, as it were, of the lease, if you use the word anniversary date, there have definitely been court cases and definitely people who've held and contended that the one time you can raise rent, kick them out, change terms and conditions, update your lease, is that annual date when they signed the lease. Even if rent is due monthly, that was easy to say. Anniversaries happen once a year because I forget mine often. If I had to remember it monthly, I'd be even in more trouble. So just be careful of that term. Maybe find a different term like a renewal date or a lease execution date or some other term that you want to call it. But watch out for anniversary, because it really does mean something that happens once a year, and people are getting smart to that sort of stuff. The good and bad thing is that tenants read the mini storage messenger like we do as operators and owners and so forth. So when we warn you about this sort of stuff, it also gives the tenants an idea. So you're warned. So are the tenants to a certain extent. Watch for these sorts of things. Be very careful. And like I said at the beginning, there are ways to differentiate your facility without over-exaggerating. As long as you think about what you mean and mean what you say, you're okay. It's when you didn't give it that thought until after you're sued and someone says, my stuff was damaged here and I think I should get around the contract because of the fancy advertising or marketing terms I've used or the terms I've used in my sales presentation, that you're going to be sorry you hadn't thought of them first. I can't thank you enough for attending today's webinar. Naturally, if you have questions, I believe Robin is going to put up some contact information for Joe and I. If not, I can be reached through selfstoragelegal.com. Thank you.
Thank you to everyone for attending today. We hope we've provided some useful information to assist you in your investment or development endeavors. Also, to register for any of our future webinars, please visit our website at ministoragemessenger.com. Thank you again for attending, and have a wonderful rest of the day.